All right, so we're recording and I'm going to let you take over, Ron.
All right, thank you, and hello to everybody, even though I can't see you, and hope to see everybody soon. And I appreciate the Chamber giving me the opportunity to try and be of assistance during this very difficult time for everybody. So today's topic is urgent items business owners need to know during Corona crisis and beyond. A lot of this is stuff that would be relevant whether we were in normal times or in the situation we are now. So if plan A doesn't work, there are 25 more letters in the alphabet. So we'll keep going till we get it right. So preliminary observations. By now we're well into the quarantine period and deep into the business disruption event that has been the byproduct of the spread of COVID-19 and coronavirus. It's scary and unsettling for everybody. At this point, we're all adjusting to the new abnormal, focusing on what this means for us, our families, our businesses, and our communities. And I'm hopeful that this program and other programs that the Chamber's doing and everything that we're all doing together will help forge a path towards recovery. So audience assessment, and you can, chat in and share, but, on a scale of 1 to 10, how disruptive has the coronavirus been to your business? When would you be comfortable reopening the economy? Now, at the end of April, at the end of May? How confident are you that your business will recover within the next 6 months? How confident are you that the economy will recover within the next 6 months? And reopening, what is the impact to your business? What is the opportunity? What are the potential risks? Those are sort of the questions that you ought to be asking yourself. Someone said on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say 11, and I completely understand that. So these are sort of the questions that I'm asking, that business owners should be asking, that people should be focusing on as we try and move forward. So ADP did a business survey, and these are some of the results that they found in March when they did the survey, and it'll be in the presentation and you can see it, but there was a little more positivity than I'm seeing in the chat today, but it's likely because we're 5 weeks into this now, and we have no idea when and how we're coming out of it still. So 7 critical items at any time are going to be funding and cash flow, business planning, mission, vision, and exit strategy, branding and marketing, legal and compliance, financial and accounting, systems and operations, human resources, insurance, and licenses. Those are going to be the issues that every business has, whether they're in quarantine or not. So current action items. Don't panic. Everyone is facing the same health crisis and business problems. This isn't a situation where you're alone. Everybody's in this together. Safety first. Your first priority should be the health and safety of you and your family, your employees, your customers, and your clients. Review the situation. Take the time that you have. Organize your legal, financial, and insurance documents. Schedule meetings with your trusted professionals, accountant, attorney, insurance agent, anyone else. Identify and continue critical business operations and services. Work to minimize the disruption to operations, as difficult as that is, and minimize immediate damage and loss. Conserve cash and plan for the worst. This applies to your individual and business finances. Use technology to remain visible during quarantine. Embrace virtual meetings and the internet. Communicate with clients, customers, colleagues, and friends. Don't stop networking. Plan and adjust. Focus on 30, 60, 90, and 120-day increments and adjust as necessary. Anticipate that everything that you plan is going to be subject to change, with and without notice. So how can you assess your situation? Budgeting and cash flow is essential. Staffing and payroll, including the payroll protection program, if you were lucky enough to get some funding in the first wave. What is your retail or wholesale inventory and supply chain look like? How can you deliver business and professional services depending on the nature of the business that you are? Make sure you have a chain of command and support for your staff and employees, and then focus on what you can do to help your customers and how you can be a resource to the community. Sometimes it's not going to be so much selling as it is just being a resource. So corporate documents, and this applies to now or at any time. Forming a business creates a separate and distinct legal entity. It provides protection for you from personal liability, and you need to maintain the company to maintain that protection, that corporate shield. Your corporate governance documents should include your articles of incorporation or articles of organization, your corporate bylaws or company regulations, your organizational minutes, your annual reports, your stock and membership register, and your corporate minutes. Corporate records help to substantiate the existence of your business. They provide protection from lawsuits and creditors. They substantiate tax deductions regardless of whether your business makes a profit or not, and it's going to be useful for your personal tax returns. Florida annual reports. Each year you've got to update your corporate records at sunbiz.org and designate a registered agent to accept service of process and other documents. Normally the deadline is May 1st. Every year it's May 1st, and if you don't file by May 1st, you're subject to significant penalties for late fees and then reinstatement fees. This year the deadline's been extended to June 30th, 2020. It'll go back to May in 2021. But you should, if you haven't filed those yet, you should file those, and I can assist with that. Legal documents that you need. And again, this is, for any time, but now more than ever, if you have the time to review and make sure you fill in the gaps, it's going to be helpful to you. So an ongoing business plan, your formation documents, your governing documents, any contracts, leases, and related documents, your employment manual, along with employment independent contractor agreements, which should include non-disclosure, non-solicitation, and non-compete provisions, buy-sell agreements, including key man and key woman insurance, which is helpful if something happens to you, website and social media policies, now more than ever, trademark and copyright registrations, and business licenses and permits. Make sure those are all up to date and current. So review your corporate formation and governance documents, ensure compliance and timely filing of your annual reports that I said are due June 30th. Maintaining compliance, as I said, is going to help protect you from personal liability, and attorneys can help you even if yours are incomplete or lost. Assess your overall business operations and continuity plans. Address employer-employee issues such as furloughs, terminations, and overall work issues. Review and update your employment manuals, including for independent contractors. Review contracts and leases. Determine practicality of performance and any exculpation clauses, which means how you get out of it if you can't perform under the contract. Review business interruption insurance policies, document losses, so that, if you have it, you can see about putting in a claim to your insurance company. Apply for financial assistance from any source that's available, federal and state governments, banks, and other programs. So what are some real estate issues? Let's just see. So friendly real estate issues. You need to review your lease and or mortgage with respect to your property. Review your current financial obligations and opportunities to renegotiate the lease or refinance the mortgage. Examine force majeure clauses and issues involving interruption of service and access. Force majeure is when you can't perform due to an act of God, act of nature, or national emergency. And this is certainly going to apply. And then a reminder that we're coming into hurricane season. So, there's act of gods and act of nature that may or may not be coming our way even more. An attorney can advise you on eviction and foreclosure proceedings as applicable. There are state and federal moratoriums on those. But I've been getting phone calls from individuals and businesses whose landlords are not paying attention to those restrictions. So you need to be proactive. And then there are a lot of loss mitigation options that are available. And we need to examine how it's going to impact you and your business finances and credit. So notable elements of a lease, and these should be subject to review when you're negotiating your lease or when you're doing, a lease review with your attorney or your realtor or both now and in the next few months. So rent and other charges, identification of the leased premises, specification of the term of the lease, issues involving the security deposit, and for landlords, those need to be segregated so that you comply with the regulations. Any improvement allowance, use and exclusivity clauses. If you own a business, you don't want the same business moving in next door to you. Assignment and subletting. This is important if you want to try and, bring in somebody as a subtenant or, for all or part of the space. If you can't afford the lease or you want to try and get someone to help you with paying those expenses. Personal guarantees, avoid them if you can, limit them as much as possible, and have an attorney review them. Renewal options, these are important. They're especially important that you comply with any requirements to renew them in advance of any deadlines. See about business interruption provisions, requirements for your cleanup or exit at the end of the tenancy. Severability clause, that means that the lease will continue, the lease or the mortgage or the doc contract will continue even if a provision is deemed to be improper. Termination and damages provisions, and then forum selection and venue. You want any litigation that's going to arise, you want it to be in Palm Beach County or where your main business is located. So notable elements of a contract, and this is going to be similar things. The official name of the parties. And I cannot emphasize this enough. I got a phone call the other day from a woman who runs a medical clinic. She is having problems paying the lease. It has 3 more years to run. And unfortunately, the lease is in her personal name and not in the name of her business. So there's no personal guarantee on the lease. Why is there no personal guarantee on the lease? Because she already personally guaranteed it by signing the lease in her own name rather than in her business name. And so the problem that we're going to have is our options are going to be really limited in her situation. We're either going to have to negotiate with the landlord and get a satisfactory settlement to both sides, or she's going to have to explore bankruptcy to discharge the obligations under the lease. She doesn't have the protection of her business being the signatory on the lease or the contract, and it's a huge problem for her. So make sure that you do that. The contract should have the description of the rights and obligations of each party, description of the payment obligations, time limits on performance, time limits on payment. If you don't perform or you don't get paid, you want to be able to sue quickly and easily. Clear language regarding the effective date that the agreement takes effect. Explicit provisions to support conflict resolution, including prevailing party language. Again, if you win the lawsuit, if you have to sue and you have to file a lawsuit and you win, you want to be able to recover attorney's fees. You don't want your recovery of damages to be diminished by the fact that you have to pay your lawyer and don't get to recover that from the other party. Business interruption provisions to protect you if you can't perform. Again, the severability clause, termination and damages provisions, and the forum selection and venue. You want the litigation to be in your home court. So insurance, again, another issue that you ought to be, reviewing in normal times, not just now that we're dealing with the pandemic. So professional liability, errors and omissions, commercial property insurance, workers' compensation insurance, automobile. If you've got employees driving their vehicles or your vehicles, you want to have some coverage for when they're driving on company business. Product liability, if you're producing products or distributing products that are made by somebody else, you want to make sure that you're covered either under their policy or yours. Business interruption insurance. Policies are going to get rewritten going forward. Their insurance companies, if they haven't already, are going to attempt to exclude viruses and pandemics, and we're going to need to review insurance policies more carefully going forward. And then umbrella policy on your homeowner's insurance or other insurance policy for any home-based business, because your normal homeowner's insurance will not protect you if you're working from home. So employment laws and issues. Employers must comply with the provisions of a whole host of legislation Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, the Family and Medical Leave Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Rehabilitation Act, Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA. HIPAA is the law that protects your insurance, your health insurance, your health records, and gives you privacy, but it also gives you the right to have portability. If you lose your job and get laid off, you get COBRA, and that's part of that as well. National Labor Relations Act, and then the Families First Coronavirus Response Act and the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act, CARES, both include significant laws related to employer-employee relationships. Part of that is with regard to the Payment Protection Plan and the monies that are being given and the need to keep employees on payroll. But there are a whole host of other regulations about layoffs and furloughs and health insurance, and happy to answer questions about those in greater depth offline. Employers must differentiate between full-time employees, part-time employees, and independent contractors. And businesses with on-site employees need to be mindful of all the regulations intended to keep employees and their customers safe. Seek guidance from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, as you prepare to return to a workspace when circumstances permit. So intellectual property. Now more than ever, you need to protect all of your intellectual property, trademarks, copyrights, name and logo service marks. You need to understand the scope of work for hire and differentiate between work that somebody does for you that they own and work that they do for you on a contract basis that you want to have ownership of. And you want to make sure that when you engage anybody to deal with your internet and social media policies, that you have ownership, that you can transfer it, that you can take it with you, that you're not bound to them for them to host your website. You need to identify and protect your brand. So website and social media issues. If you haven't, update your website to reflect the current situation. Describe how you intend to work remotely, how you intend to assist and engage with clients, customers, and the community. And if you can't, explain why it's not feasible. Try to innovate with selling gift cards or other products. If possible, keep some momentum going of your business. Ensure that your website is in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. I've been saying this for a long time now and reminding people that just as there was a wave of lawsuits regarding physical space and access under the Americans with Disabilities Act, the new trend is for people to quite honestly troll websites and try to find that the information is not easily viewable by people with vision or other problems, and then bring complaints under the ADA. There are companies that specifically can work with your internet and social media providers to help you bring your website in compliance. Review your privacy policies and terms and conditions. You should include those as checkboxes on your website, especially when people are giving you their personal information. And the more and more information they provide to you, the more important it is for you to have specific privacy policies and terms and conditions that clients and customers understand. Engage your clients and customers via timely and useful information via email or the web and social media. Post updates, utilize online resources, update Google Maps, Yelp, or other search engines and services. So business financing. This is always an issue of cash flow and business financing and how to deal with it. And again, now more than ever, it's critical to the operation of your business during this pandemic. So contact your existing lender for additional capital and or renegotiation or refinance of your existing loans. I would highly recommend that you talk to your attorney and your accountant before you make those phone calls, and hopefully involve them in those conversations. Avoid personal guarantees when and if possible. Limit them in scope as much as possible. One thing that I do when I'm representing tenants is try to have a sliding personal guarantee so that it's a longer personal guarantee when the lease starts, and over time you become less and less obligated for long-term obligations under the lease, and have a fixed finite period where you're going to have personal liability. Explore other lending sources, including special programs and grants. Facebook's got a grant program right now. Consider equity investors. If you've got family members or friends or business associates who would want to invest, then that might be an option to finance or provide additional capital. Again, I would do it as much as possible in the scope of an operating agreement for an LLC, and bring it in that way. It's the easiest way to bring in equity investors, delineate responsibilities and obligations, and maintain control if you're going to run the business and they're going to be the silent partners. Take short-term victories and negotiate again later. If you can get a 30, a 60, a 90-day extension from a creditor, and that's all they're willing to give right now, then take it, and 30, 60, or 90 days from now, we'll renegotiate. So disaster relief financing. There are various federal and state programs that were enacted. Unfortunately, most of them are right now out of money and awaiting further funding from the government. The Paycheck Protection Program ran out of money on April 15th, and hopefully there'll be another wave. The EDIL loans are out of money as well, and those had originally been an initial advance of $10,000 and then up to $25,000, and then it was changed to $1,000 per employee, and those are out of cash. And the SBA Express Bridge loans are also need to be refunded. There's no more money in the state of Florida. 37,000 small businesses were turned down for small business financing, and only 1,000 of the 38,000 companies got bridge loans from the Small Business Administration in Florida. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is giving $5,000 grants to companies with 3 to 20 employees, and I've included the link. Facebook's giving grants to companies with 2 to 50 employees, and I've provided the link. Please, if you are eligible, apply for those, see what money you can get, take advantage of it. So negotiating with vendors, creditors, landlords, and lenders. Review the applicable contract, lease, and loan documents in advance. Prepare a list of what you need and want, and what you're willing to give in order to get that. Ask for help and communicate. Get any new deal in writing. And again, as I said earlier, take short-term victories and negotiate again later. So bankruptcy. And bankruptcy is a last resort. But for a distressed business or individuals, it can be a valuable tool to level the playing field with creditors, but comes with costs and risks. The difficulty right now is that we can't make any realistic projections of future earnings, and everybody is suffering and affected. Distressed individuals and businesses should start contacting attorneys now to plan. There are what's called exemptions that let you keep certain property in bankruptcy, but you need to plan that out well in advance of a bankruptcy filing. You don't want it to be on an emergency basis. I'm doing a webinar on bankruptcies on May 12th. So I hope you're enjoying this webinar, and I hope you'll join us on May 12th for that webinar. But a preview of that is just a little intro to bankruptcy, which is Chapter 7 is liquidation for individuals and small businesses. As I said, you get to keep a certain number of exempt assets, surrender non-exempt assets for liquidation with money to be distributed to creditors, and the discharge of debts applies only to individual Chapter 7 debtors. Chapter 11s are restructuring for businesses and individuals whose assets and liabilities exceed Chapter 13 limits. And there are new provisions to streamline the process for small business debtors to make it a small business Chapter 11 without a lot of the bells and whistles and expenses that come with a normal Chapter 11 business filing. Chapter 13 is a restructuring option available to individuals only. Individuals have to have regular monthly income in order to fund a Chapter 13 plan. The advantage is you keep all your assets. There's no distinction between exempt and non-exempt assets like in a Chapter 7, and then you make monthly payments to the trustee over 3 to 5 years, and the trustee distributes those payments to creditors. Sometimes you pay secured creditors like your mortgage or your car loan directly. So wills and other documents, while not directly related to your business, you should use this opportunity to review and update the following: your estate documents, will or trust, healthcare surrogate forms, who you want to make decisions for you in the event of your incapacity, your living will setting forth what your wishes are for your healthcare surrogate to follow, power of attorney for someone to execute documents or access bank accounts on your behalf. And then overlooked is a medical power of attorney for minor children. If you've got kids, you probably have, and you have a will, you have provisions in your will for the care and custody of your children. But the bigger risk is that you're going to be incapacitated and not able to make decisions, but also not able to designate anybody to do that for you. So you need to have a medical power of attorney for your minor children. And then you need to make sure that your adult unmarried children have their documents in order, so that if they are incapacitated, you are able to both access their health information and help make difficult decisions. So planning for the future. Update your disaster recovery, business continuity, and crisis communication plans. Hurricane season is coming, and that would be a double whammy that I'm not sure how we would manage with, but we're going to have to prepare for it. Assess your business resumption process and procedures, both now and in the event of a hurricane. Update telecommuting, disaster response, and crisis communication policies and procedures. Update your risk profile and mitigation plans. Review your insurance policies, including business interruption insurance plans, and edit and update your business plan. And then, as I said earlier at the beginning, take a deep breath. You don't have to do this all at once. You don't have to do this alone, and you have time to prepare. So concluding thoughts. COVID-19 is going to have significant sweeping impact on our lives and our businesses. Individuals and businesses are going to have to adjust to these health challenges and societal concerns. I think social distancing, telecommuting, virtual meetings are going to be part of our vocabulary and lifestyle for a significant amount of time. We have no idea how this disease works or how it's going to flow. And there are already, reports that even if we beat this now and we're able to get back to a new normal in May and June, that we might have a second wave in December. And then, consulting with professionals can save you time and money and avoid future problems. The example that I gave earlier about the woman who signed a lease in her own name. I wish she had consulted me or another attorney before signing that lease. It's a horrible situation that she finds herself in as a business owner. She doesn't have the protections that she expected to have of the corporate shield. And we're going to need to work harder to get her a satisfactory workout. So that is my presentation. It's a little less time than I expected it to be and we budgeted for, but I'm happy to answer questions and trying to figure out how I do that to see what questions are on the board. So I'm gonna look in the chat. There's no questions there, but feel free to ask me questions. You can use the chat feature and go from there. And if there aren't questions, I have, and you'll get this in the slide, but some information about me, some information about my firm, and then a disclaimer. And the main disclaimer is that events are happening at record speed, and I made multiple edits to this in the time leading up to this webinar, and all of the information in here, especially with regard to financial relief opportunities that may or may not be offered by the government or private entities. All of it's subject to change without notice. So be aware and keep informed. So I appreciate the opportunity to have presented the webinar and look forward to seeing everybody hopefully very soon.
Alrighty, everyone. Thank you so much. I do want to say if there's any questions, please feel free to ask them now. I just see that someone was wondering about the slides. Everything will be provided on the Chamber website, along with our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. So I guess
And you can email me as well,
yep.
And I'll send them to you.
Yep. All right. So I guess we're good. We don't have any more questions. I do want to invite you all to join us next Tuesday at 12:30. The topic for that webinar will be mindfulness and breathing techniques to de-stress during stressful times. So it'll be a little bit more of a kind of relaxed webinar. We do have a question. Oh, not a question. Just great job, Ron.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And please feel free to call me or email me with any questions. You know, this is what I've done for 25 years as a lawyer. And so I'm happy to be a resource and want to answer anybody's questions.
All right. I guess we're going to go ahead and close out now. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. And again, you can find all of this on the Chamber website, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.